Welcome back to Git Tales. So this is the inaugural video of the actual Tales of the Git. So we're going to go through the history of the program that you see in the demo video, and then we're going to walk through from changing the folder names of a previous project, all the changes made to get to this project's end, and leave the earlier commits maybe for a later series. So let's start off with it. I'm going to be going at probably a curious pace. If you're experienced Android programmer, this might be a bit slow. Maybe you'll enjoy some of the side commentary. If you're a beginner, I'm going to try and explain concepts as I go. Won't be making too much use of the shortcut of the keys in the IDE you're about to see. So I'm not going to be enabling the keystrokes. Opening up Android Studio. Okay, so this is the first screen you'll probably see. If you have already a project downloaded, you'd import it. How would you do that, you might ask? Good question. Where would we have gotten one of these projects that we're about to import? Now, we could start a new one for sure, and that's probably what you may or may not do the first time. However, a lot of times it's good to be bringing in a project. We're going to be using this one here, Tunican, that we're going to be reviewing. However, how would you get this inside of Studio Projects, right? Where did this thing come from in the first place? Let's say you're just coming onto a project, right, that's already existing. Well, you'd probably be having that project on GitHub. And here's one that I was looking at. This is an Android project, but it'll serve to show how one brings that folder in. This is the project name. This here is the organization name. We go there, just copy the URL. Open up terminal, say. And clone. Now you don't press enter right after that, you type in a .git at the end. Now make a folder called Minikube right there inside of Studio Projects, and it'll have all of the Git changes inside of there, as well as the code that you'll be able to edit. It's all just text files. So at this point, we could import a project. Like Pocket Hub. Minikube might have Gradle, no. But Android projects will have a Gradle. Here's one for a client I'm building. You would pick the build Gradle, not the settings Gradle. You could import, in this case it would be the build Gradle for Tunican. But we've already imported it, so we just click on it. Cool. Alright, this is the IDE. Spend most of your time in this as an Android developer. If you aren't, drawing stuff out for code or making presentations, you're going to spend most of your other times in here. Big buttons, there's the build, make project, right? It says play button. We'll do that and it'll actually run it, try to run it on a connected device. Build and run. Here's the make. Gradle build running. Let's take a look what that build Gradle says. Not much. Some places that you get things from. And a little task called clean. What should happen when it needs to clean? There's another build Gradle. You'll see it come up whenever you type in, let's say, enter file name, you're looking for build Gradle. You'll see there's two of them. One's for Tunican here, and the other one is an app. So it's got a bit more in it. SDK versions, a bunch of the things, the dependencies that you're going to need to be using. You can see Dagger is used in this project. The recycler view for version 7's being used. RX Java and the RX Android. This is a quote right off the web from the RX Android page. And some Guava. Not sure why I'm using Guava, but it's in there right now. That might be able to be cleaned up. Everything here is generated files as well as build. Captures, these are for analysis while it's running. Gradle, this is the thing that manages all of these dependencies, puts them together, makes it easy to just click build and it runs and updates itself to the right new version. Build again is generated. Really, everything that we're going to be interested in is underneath source. Test, sure. We don't have any unit tests in this. And inside main, you have the resources and the code. Right, the resources is where we're going to probably really start a lot of our changes, the layouts. We have two of them. We have one for the screens, the larger screen, and one for the individual items. So I also have drawables in here. These are in XML. These once were icons, the vector images. Each of them is a path, SVGs. Right. Capital M meaning move, 12.01, 21.49, those are the coordinates. I want to draw a line from to this point. Right. You can start doing curves as well. These are all not Android doesn't recognize SVGs directly. These are just kind of how this is how these XMLs are kind of its intermediate step in these vector drawables. These are the icons for the launcher. I haven't updated this, it's just the little Android guy. And there's different resolutions for different size phones. All these values whenever we put in values into the code, like how many seconds that a certain animation should take or stuff like that, it's good to extract that into its own file. So as programmers, we can kind of fiddle with those values without having to like go into the middle of the code. Instead, we know that if it's ever referenced, it's been referenced by name, say color primary or color light matte gray, color orange, right? Instead of this number in the code. That's very, this makes the code stronger. Same with dimensions, right? Strings. Styles, well, we'll get into these, but this is pretty much the default setup, I believe. And yeah, integers, right? Integers and dimensions are different, right? And integers can't be, again, obviously not fractions. That goes, I believe, into dimensions. I could be wrong. There's the code side. Those are the resources. And there's the code side. And I've broken it up into V-I-P-E-R, Viper. Those are the categories of things that will be making up our program. Before we get into those and the Viper architecture, I should just look at a couple other things here. ProGuard rules, it does not. If you can avoid ProGuard, avoid ProGuard. App.iml, this is, I believe, generated. Yes, certainly is. But it goes along with the Git files. It's brought in the repository. And there's also the manifest. This is kind of the really the first thing to go to if you're trying to figure out a new application or an application that's new to you. So it's the overarching rules for what's going on. We have the namespace, XML namespace is Android. That name is going to be relating to this scheme. Now, we don't really ever need to get too much further into that. Package, that's the package. This is what defines your application on the App Store and inside the phone itself. We have the application section, I guess you'd call that. And we have our name. Allow backup, yes. Icon is just a default one. I may want to be changing allow backup. That might be a remnant from the previous app. Supports our right to left. That's what this is. Some, of course, not every culture reads left to right as this code does. So the UI, at least of the machine, should be able to switch so that one can read the information on the screen in such a way that it makes sense reading it from right to left. And so instead of saying that we should have a certain thing on the left of a field, instead we say it should be at the start of the field. Instead of being on the right, it's at the end of the field. And this allows the field to be switched, and the start and end can be relative to whatever the user picks. And that theme again. And inside that application there is one activity. Inside each activity you can put intent filters. Right, the intent filters are kind of the thing that it's the hook. It's the listener inside the operating system. You can have intents that are emails coming in or shared pictures, things like that. And the intent filter will be there to pick. The intent filter is the mechanism by which we pick that up. In this case, it's the bare minimum required, which is the main action run, right? And it is coming from the category from the launcher. So you can launch this from the icon. That is what this does. It is locking the screen orientation to portrait, which is somewhat recommended against you. It's generally a good idea to be able to handle orientation change and not to lock it. However, people want to get things out a little faster sometimes, and it's nice to be able to just lock it and then try to roll out the orientation sensitivity at a later date. In this case, however, I'm trying to design it in such a way that either orientation works on the screen as is. The screen as oriented as I'll lay it out in this portrait. If you turn it on its side, it's still a workable and intuitive interface. So I'm just locking it to portrait. Alright, so that's the manifest. These are all XML, all these layouts. Now, the Java side. Alright, we're going to stop here and take a turn and jump to the next video. I think now that we've finished up those resources, the next step is looking at the code, and that's going to be checking out this Viper architecture, which is big enough of a concept that I think it deserves its own space. So we'll pick this up in the next video. Happy hacking.